Hi, my name is Sandy Wright. I'm the Music and Education Coordinator here at Bandology, and today we are talking to Rubix, who is a Calgary-based Filipino-Canadian rapper and music educator. And Rubix, we are super excited to have you on. It's great to see you.
Thank you for having me, Sandy. Shout outs to all the work that you guys are doing. And yeah, I'm excited to connect with you.
Yeah, no, I'm really excited to talk to you today. One question I have that I think maybe is the first thing to answer that wasn't on the list of things that maybe I talked to you about before we started chatting. What does your name mean?
Ooh, that's a good question. So Rubix is an acronym, okay, RUBIX, okay, and it stands for Resilience Under Burden Inspires Excellence. And to me, what that means is, you know, when I'm going through obstacles or when I'm going through low times or when I'm going through any kind of struggle in my life, you know, if I practice the idea of resiliency, and resiliency can mean so many different things to many different people, but to me, resiliency is like, okay, like how do I bounce back? How do I keep solution oriented? You know, how do I not give into like the darkness of emotions? You know what I mean? Or even then, like embracing those emotions. You know, like how do you do that, right? Because that's a muscle, that's a uncomfortable muscle to flex. Yeah. But what I've learned is that the more that I allow those things to happen, the more that I embrace the struggles, the more that I, you know, keep positive, the more that I stay around, you know, positive people, it builds this internal strength inside me, whether it's just as a human, whether it's like as a man, whether it's as an artist, you know, this internal strength is building and it's shaping my character. And over time, I found that the more that I focus on building that strength and flexing that muscle, you know, I start to feel a lot more excellent, so to speak. Like I just, you know, my mind state, you know, like the quality of my mind state starts to rise up, you know, the quality of my joy, my levels of joy start to come out, and you know what I mean, and bring me back to just like my essence, you know. So that to me is excellence, you know. So it's always just, you know, and again, like this acronym, like I can only speak for myself, you know. I'm not trying to impose this lifestyle, this mindset on anybody, but if anybody resonates with it, then by all means take it and run, you know. So like to me, resilience under burden inspires excellence is just about keeping the mind state healthy and keeping positive, you know, keeping perspectives in mind so that you can go through any struggle and you can put on a different perspective and be like, okay, you know what, this isn't so bad. Okay, no, you know what, I'll make it through this. And the more that I just practice that, the more confidence, my self-confidence builds, and the more integrity, you know, I'm able to stay in alignment with like my personal integrity, you know, whether as an artist or as a human. So, yeah. And mind you, this is like a lifelong process. This is a lifelong journey. So
it's not an end point. There's just like the journey kind of part.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's something I came across when I took a listen to some of your music. That sort of like ideas about like overcoming things and using your own sort of like ability to process emotions and cope with those in healthy ways to like move forward. On that, you've obviously put out music, but like, could you tell me a little bit about like what you do, sort of the current positions that you're in right now in terms of like your music making and the stuff you do in the community?
Sure. So, you know, obviously, you know, I make rap music, I make hip hop music, I produce hip hop music, and that's just like an expression of my passion. You know, outside of that, I'm very well connected in the hip hop community here, and even just the music community in general. But to really like focus in on you know, one of my roles, you know, I like to view myself as a teacher. You know, I like to pass down knowledge. I work with a lot of kids. I work with a lot of youth. For the last 5, 6, 7 years, I've worked with at-risk youth. I've worked with youth within schools. I've done one-on-one mentorship. And this is all in the realm of teaching youth how to use hip hop expressions, such as breaking, you know, like breakdancing, right? Teaching them what a cipher is. I don't know if you know what a cipher is, Andy, but a cipher is when there's a circle of people, okay? And whether they're dancing or rapping or whatever, they're exchanging this energy and they're bouncing off each other, okay? So using the framework of a cipher and teaching youth how to, you know, again, like how to build resiliency in that atmosphere. So you can do this with breakdancing. And I love to do this with rap, because one of my favorite things, hands down, to see is I teach a kid how to write a bar, how to write rhymes.
Yeah.
Okay. In the most simplest way. And then they take it and they run, and their imagination just flows into it. And, and when I see that happen, especially when the kid used to be shy and now he's up front in front of the class sharing what he or she wrote, like, to me, that inspires me.
Yeah.
So yeah. So again, in its basics essence, I like to pass down hip hop knowledge, and I like to remind anybody, whether you're a youth or an adult, that hip hop is an outlet, for those who are oppressed, for those who feel voiceless, because that's what it was for me, right? And I know that it can help, a lot of people's mental health, emotional health, and spiritual health even, so yeah.
That's awesome.
That's what I do.
That's a really beautiful way to describe teaching. One of the things that I do in my own work is like teaching kids, and that's one of my favorite like sort of moments. And it does drive you and kind of pass on that inspiration. But sort of heading off that I track. So what sort of like, what was the first thing that sort of like you did in music when you were sort of like learning? What was your first, like, when did you first pick up an instrument? Did you first like write your first rap or sing something for the first time?
Okay, so as a young child, I remember writing lots of poetry, and I would do this like in secrecy. I never showed anybody.
Yeah.
But then I learned, like, I got to credit this to my sister, my older sister. She showed me her poetry, and then she would also, like, she would be singing all the time, growing up. And there was just something about her passion with music that was inspiring me. And I was like, yeah, I want to do something with music, but I can't sing worth crap, and at that time I wasn't even confident in my own poems. Again, I was doing it in secrecy because I didn't want to be made fun of for whatever reason. But one thing I want to add is that in the Filipino family, like in the Filipino household, the karaoke machine is a very prevalent thing. So like every week, I'm around that vibe. My aunts and uncles, my sister, family, friends, they come over and they just sing karaoke and they just perform for hours and hours and hours. And to me, that's it was kind of like a normal thing.
Yeah.
So already that seed is planted in my head from a young child. Like, oh yeah, we can perform. We can get on the microphone and show off our musicality.
Yeah.
Mind you, there was not really like any hardcore musicians in my family, right? But there's definitely a deep passion for music that I learned from my parents. Now, fast forward to grade 9, my sister took me to watch this documentary about this rapper named Tupac Shakur. It's called Tupac Resurrection. And in that documentary, I saw how Tupac used music to influence the world, and to strengthen and fortify his mental state. And I was like, I want to do that. That's it. That's what I want to do. So the first thing, again, it's all about finding those. When I found the rappers that I was like, yo, that sounds cool. They're cool. I want to be cool like them. That pretty much just ignited the passion, ignited the chase. But that defining moment when I watched that documentary, that Tupac documentary, I left that movie theater being like, I want to do that. I want to impact the world like that.
Yeah.
That's
amazing. That's great.
Yeah. So shout out to my sister for helping plant that seed.
Yeah. It's sort of that you grow up in that environment, and music lets you have that sort of like expression. And it's sort of really cool when I hear like people talk about the thing that like drives them into like creating that career. Was there anything like, what was the sort of first thing you sort of made? Like, what was the first time you sort of like really stepped your foot into like, I'm going to take the first step into trying to actually do this? Like, what was that first step?
It was learning how to freestyle rap. Yeah. Learning how to freestyle rap. So like for anybody that doesn't know what freestyle rap is, it's when you're essentially making up rhymes on the spot with no preparation and you're just jamming. Okay. Now for the first 5 years of my rap career, I sucked I sucked. Many times I was like, this isn't for me, actually. I think I should just quit,
Yeah.
But it was fun. It was fun. So I kept going. And I found that as I got more confident in freestyling, I started to get more confident in just rapping in general. I've always been a writer. I can write rhymes, no problem. But to perform them is a whole another story. To perform them with confidence, that's a whole nother story. And so the art of freestyling helped me develop that confidence in my performance.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's one of I obviously like, I personally know very little about actually what it takes to do sort of freestyle rapping. But it's something that I always admire seeing people like that I've met or that are like colleagues that like engage in that, because it's such an interesting like form of expression, because it's so it's so much improvisation, basically kind of get into that sort of space, and it's really cool to watch.
Yeah.
In that sort of like field, or like just in general, do you have like any sort of like major influences or like mentors that have like helped you through sort of that process of going from like, I am not good at this, oh my goodness, maybe this isn't for me, to no, I'm like, who have like helped you through that process, or even just people who have influenced how you like write?
Yeah. Again, like Tupac is a huge influence, just as a human, as a artist, because he has very like defining traits of like just like he doesn't care what you think, like he's gonna do it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like to Tupac, it was like, we can all die tomorrow, so we might as well just go 200% now. Mm-hmm. Right. So, and he's very driven. So that inspired me to be like, okay, I want to have that fire behind me, Yeah. In terms of other artists, Immortal Technique, who's a very like hardcore underground political rapper.
Yeah.
I was listening to a lot of him in high school, and that was like shaping just the way that I view the world, realizing that like, oh, okay, like a lot of society is within this like created system, for example, like this created like capitalist system that isn't really designed to benefit anybody that's not at the top of that system. So just like opening my eyes to stuff like that. Again, my sister has been there a lot for me in times of, in times of doubt, in times of struggle. She's been there to keep me in check, to help me with perspectives, and to just like be an ear, and to just be like my big sister.
Yeah.
And apart from that, like, just freestyling with friends. That's what really brought up the confidence. Again, like I said, in the first 5 years of me freestyling, I sucked. Okay. Mm-hmm. But then after that 5 years, I met my friend who I still make music with, who's actually on that cover of that CBC article. His name's Twizzy. And I started freestyling with him. And then, we met this other artist named Rebecca Dawn and a DJ named Jason. And we just started having these weekly freestyle sessions where we would just freestyle for literally 6 hours a day.
That's so cool.
And it was after doing that for like 6-7 months, I remember going to Vancouver, and I got into this freestyle cipher on the street, and I said something that offended one of the rappers, and they punched me. He threw a punch at me. And I just remember the next day waking up being like, whoa, somebody punched me in that rap cipher. And that's when it clicked. I was like, I'm good at this now. It's, like my skill level got to the point where someone had to physically hit me because what I said had stirred up, triggered them or stirred up whatever emotion. Like, to me, that's like, whoa, I must have been saying something crazy, or like, that's just, it's a reflection of how much confidence I had in my freestyle.
Yeah.
That's how I viewed it.
Andologies does not condone violence as a solution to your interpersonal problems.
Absolutely not. Take it out on freestyle. Take it out on rap. Yeah. Non-violent violence.
Yeah. Express yourself, not through punching. From that sort of developing that confidence, can you think of anything that are like either before that or like since then that is like a career highlight for you?
For sure. Just in like my career as a hip hop artist.
Yeah, and is your career sort of like as you're doing like teaching and stuff like that, sort of passing that knowledge on? Okay, so that story about me in Vancouver, that's a highlight. That was like the first time I was just like, whoa, okay, I'm good. I'm better. I'm way better than before. Yeah.
Apart from that, I would say performing at music festivals here in Calgary, like Sled Island, One Love Music Festival, Global Fest Fireworks Festival, and then being invited to perform at a bunch of like small music festivals, like outdoor electronic music festivals in the forest out in British Columbia.
Cool.
So like, small music festivals like Fozzy Fest, Wicked Woods, and then also being invited to perform at music festivals out in Toronto as well.
Yeah.
Those are career highlights for sure. With teaching, every time, the first time that a mom came up to me and was like, I don't know what you did with my child, but for the last 3 years, we've been trying to get him interested in language arts and writing, and we've had zero luck. He spends 1 week, his class spends 1 week with you, and I come home and I find 4 pages back to back of written rhymes. She's like, how did you do that? I'm like, I don't know. I just pass on the knowledge and I just encourage them. I just hype them up,
Yeah.
So that's something that I'll never forget. And that's definitely a highlight and a reminder as to like, what I'm contributing,
Yeah.
And then what else is a highlight? Oh, okay. In 2018, or was it 2019? I think it was 2019. I was at a music festival in BC, and I heard 2 songs of mine that got remixed. There was electronic remixes, like EDM remixes. Yeah. These 2 songs I had, and both of those songs got played at that festival.
That's awesome.
And that was like, to me, it was like, whoa, like this is like my dream. Like this is you know what I mean? Like that was a huge milestone for me.
That's beautiful. That's so cool.
Yeah, off the top of my head, without digging too deep, I would say those are some big milestones for me.
That's awesome. Those are so cool. I would love someone to remix the music I write. I would think it would be so interesting to sort of hear what someone else does with it. Yeah. As like a person who like teaches kids and like passes on that knowledge, what is like important to you about music education? What is it, or important to music? What makes music education important in general, do you think?
To me, it's important because it's just another avenue for youth to express themselves. Because I know for a fact that there's, again, like mental health is becoming a big thing, and I feel like it's been a big thing for a long time already. We just never had like the verbiage to communicate and talk about it, right? So my favorite thing, and one of the things that's most important to me about music education is giving the youth an option to express themselves. Because I know for a fact that can go a long way. There's a lot of like, and I can say this because I grew up in this atmosphere as well, where, I got bullied. And whenever I was going through issues as a kid, I never really had a big support system. My friends never really understood the emotional issues I was going through. I had to really process that by myself, and I felt unheard. You know what I mean? And I never had music. I never had that platform to just express that, let alone like, expressing it and then being celebrated for expressing it. Like that is huge. That is huge. One thing I learned with working with kids is that they just want to be celebrated. They just want to be encouraged. They want to be seen. They don't care what you're doing. They don't care what they're doing. They just want to be acknowledged. Okay. So you give a kid some tools for them to be vulnerable. Okay. Of course they're going to be like, I don't know. This is scary. And then they go through with it. They take the risk to be vulnerable, and then they present it publicly, and then they get celebrated for it.
Yeah. Like
that is such an inspiring feeling for the kids, for the youth, for anybody, really. It doesn't matter what age you are.
Yeah.
So that to me is probably the most important thing. If I'm teaching a class and I find that like, okay, this class is kind of being rowdy, it's difficult for me to get through my lesson plan right now. Okay, well, what's more important? Me getting through my lesson plan, or me connecting with the kids and, encouraging them and you know what I mean? Like, to me, that's more important, because that's going to build a stronger bond, and they're going to remember that more in the long run versus me trying to like get through these technical lesson plans.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So yeah, it's all about just that encouragement for the kids and giving them that option of like, hey, you can express yourself in this way. And if you do, I'm going to celebrate the hell out of you.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for that, since you work with young musicians, what advice do you have for people interested in sort of like going down like the career path that you have had?
I would say number one, don't listen to too much criticism, especially from people who aren't on the same path as you. And number two, don't be afraid of being goofy. Don't be afraid of the potential of you might be looking goofy to other people that don't even matter. Because for example, when I'm teaching people how to freestyle, the number one obstacle that holds people back from trying is their fear of sounding stupid. Okay, and
Yeah.
in the face of that fear, it's a heavy fear. Nobody wants to sound stupid. However, if you work on getting over that fear, because you know that it's just an ego thing, right? If you work on getting over that fear, and then you become comfortable being uncomfortable, then you're kind of like invincible, so to speak. Like nothing can
Yeah.
phase you. And from there on, you can pursue any dream, any goal, whether it's music, whether it's you know visual arts, whether it's dancing, it doesn't matter. You can pursue anything because you know what I mean. Just being uncomfortable. You know what I mean. Being comfortable with that discomfort. It's still going to be uncomfortable, but you know what I mean. If you can change your perspective and view it as like, okay, this discomfort is actually in the long run going to help me grow. Okay, let's do it. Let's jump into this weirdness. Let's, if I make a fool of myself, whatever, because I'm going to grow as an artist from it. You know what I mean? So like those 2 points is like, those are the two most important things, because if the fear and the ego and the doubt is in the way, then doesn't matter what your plan is, doesn't matter what your goals are, it'll be very, very, very difficult to achieve.
Yeah, no, that sort of like fear of being in front of people and having to expose yourself is such a huge thing. And it's one of the cool things that I found that music does is it sort of helps you take that step past that fear. And it's really cool to like hear that it's coming across when you're like working with people, because that's like it's such a it's such a positive thing for people into as they sort of grow, especially when they're kids, when the fear of being judged is so strong.
Yeah, totally.
But yeah, one thing we kind of like to do to sort of like wrap up or our interviews is do the fast five, which
Okay.
is just like five super fast questions, top of your head, of just like things that you like sometimes in music. So we're gonna start with this. So the first question: name an instrument you wish you played.
Oh, piano.
Yeah, nice.
If I was a piano genius, like making music would be so easy. For sure. For sure.
What's your favorite movie soundtrack?
Woo. Okay, there's a Tupac movie called Juice from 1992, I believe. That's a
Cool.
really good soundtrack. Also, this is such a hard question, but anything created by Ennio Morricone,
Yeah.
I'll listen to that. I'll put on that soundtrack and just listen. Spend my whole day just listening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Such a good track.
Yeah.
What's your favorite concert you ever attended?
2019. Oh man. Okay. There's a lot. Not a lot, but there's a couple. But okay, 2019, Colorado, Red Rocks Amphitheater. Okay, there's a Halloween show, and the artist lineup is three of my most favorite rap artists ever. Okay, the first group was this group called Jedi Mind Tricks from Philadelphia, hardcore rap. I was listening to them in high school all throughout, and then Immortal Technique was on that list, and then Wu-Tang Clan was on that list. So
that's a concert.
Yeah, it was a crazy concert, and it was at the Red Rocks Amphitheater, which is a beautiful, beautiful venue. It's outside. The acoustics are great. Like, it was nice.
That's awesome.
It was real nice. So I'd say that takes the cake. Yeah, that takes the cake.
Yeah, no, that sounds like a great show. I'm envious. I wish I'd been there. This one's not quite so music. What's your dream vacation?
Oof, anywhere with tropical weather, Hawaii, Mexico. I mean, like Philippines, you know what I mean? But ideally, like Hawaii is the greatest because it's like you get that like Asian tropical, atmosphere, but it's like North American culture.
Yeah.
So it's super cool. And just being in the sun like that, it's paradise to me.
Yeah. Not something you necessarily get in Calgary.
No.
all the time.
You might get it for a little bit, but
yeah. No,
it's
yeah. It's Canada.
We the North.
We the North. Last question. What is like a hidden talent you have?
Spotting wildlife from far away.
That's
I don't know. It's like I'm driving anywhere, and all of a sudden I could see just like boom, just pops up. Whoa, is that a deer? Whoa, is that something crossing the road? Whoa, from far away. Yo, is that a bear? Whoa, is that a moose?
Dang. Just have a radar for animals.
Yeah, and that, and also I can make a very killer old fashioned drink. I don't know if you know what old fashions are, but
I do.
Yeah,
I do.
I can make a very good one with a lot of love and just like perfect balances.
Nice.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for speaking with us today, Rubix. It was great getting to know you. For all of you watching, my name's Sandy. I've been talking to Rubix from Calgary on behalf of Bandology. It was great to have you, and thank you all for watching.
Thank you, Bandology. Thank you for having me.